We might know one of the main reasons why Cyberpunk 2077 was delayed. A Polish filmmaker, Boris Niezbilak, and I hope I pronounced that right, who covered the Polish gaming industry in his documentary We Are Alright, so he seems to have sources in the Polish industry. Either way, he has some details on the recent delay. So I want to discuss them in this video, what this means and how this might have impacted all the other recent delays as well. A like on the video would be super appreciated, and let's go. First up, a quick reminder that there is still time to join my giveaway for a 2020 game of your choice on your platform of choice, so including Cyberpunk 2077. All you need to do is follow the link in the pinned comment for a chance to win. Would be nice if you are a subscriber of the channel before you entered. Winner will be announced on the first day of February. Last week we heard that Cyberpunk will not release on April 16th, 2020, but September 17th, 2020 instead. CD Projekt Red needed more time to finish the game and make it as good as they want and we expect from the studio. But now we got new rumors as to what might be going on behind the scenes and why they are having issues with the game. Of course, it's not confirmed by CD Projekt Red themselves. Maybe they will issue a statement, but they haven't at the time of this recording. But it's still interesting to look at what Boris has to say about the situation. So this was during a Polish podcast that I will link to in the video description. And someone on Discord with a name starting with JorRaptor translated some interesting points. So the biggest problem, according to Boris, is the original Xbox One, so the launch Xbox One that launched back at the end of 2013. And then this of course also applies to the Xbox One S, that is basically the same system. You would imagine that the regular PS4 then also had some trouble running this game, although it's slightly more powerful than the regular Xbox One, but it was not noted by Boris, according to the notes from Klaviatu. Now, according to Boris, Cyberpunk has an issue with running on that more than 6-year-old Xbox hardware, and that CD Projekt Red said that if the game was still running poorly in January, they would have to delay it. And well, that turned out to be the case. Of course, I would think that there is more stuff that likely needed some work. According to Boris, the main story was finished 3 months ago, but the side missions are still being worked on. Still though, if one of the 3 versions that you are launching on isn't working, then that is bad news. Like, it could totally harm your studio reputation, even if it's likely the least popular version. And it's actually pretty interesting that something quite similar happened with The Witcher 3 back in 2015. Maybe you remember this VGX trailer that was released at the end of 2013 that showed way better graphics than the Xbox One and PS4 versions could handle when the game finally released a year and a half later. This trailer was captured on the PC, but when getting closer to the release, CD Projekt Red figured out that they could not really make this work because they had to put the whole world in, and they also changed the rendering systems because one simply looked better across the whole world. And now a similar struggle seems to be happening behind the scenes. They have this vision for this game, something they showed us multiple times, but they also have to make it work on really old hardware. And I agree with Dark1X here from Digital Foundry, and you likely know their channel, right? They are really the go-to place for technical gaming analysis, and they now chime in on Reset Era, saying that the graphics are likely not the issue with Cyberpunk 2077, but everything else. It's clearly a very ambitious title with a lot of complex near-field detail and interactions. It's one thing to offer a large world, but doing so at the density and detail exhibited here is quite another. And I think you agree too, right? There should be many ways to approach missions in Cyberpunk, like you can learn certain languages and then comment on things that you would otherwise not understand. Like, everything in this game has multiple outcomes and even different paths to go to those different outcomes. Sure, we've seen that in other games too, but I totally believe that CD Projekt Red is going to push it to the next levels. Boris also says during the podcast that while Cyberpunk will be shorter than The Witcher 3, it will be very satisfying on the second and third run, likely because you will be seeing many different things that you missed the first time around. But yeah, you have to make it run on a more than 6-year-old system that when it launched was already underpowered. In 2015, during the Witcher 3 downgrade discussion, Eurogamer asked CD Projekt Red about if console versions restrict the PC version, and well, sure they did. Developing only for PC, yes, probably we would get more in terms of graphics, as there would be nothing else. Similar to if they would only develop on Xbox One and PS4. And this is a great reason why exclusives are not so bad. Like, sure, I don't like the fact that some games are basically behind a console paywall, but it does mean that the developer can just focus on that platform and not have to worry about anything else. Just make sure that it runs on this system alone, and we totally saw that pay off during this generation and with the PS3 generation as well near the end. But yeah, that is not the reality for CD Projekt Red. They can't say, okay, let's drop the Xbox One and PS4 version of Cyberpunk. And they also noted this in that interview with Eurogamer a while back. Like for The Witcher 3, if consoles were not involved, there is no Witcher 3 at all. We simply cannot afford it because consoles allow us to go higher in terms of possible or achievable sales, have a higher budget for the game, and invest it all into developing this huge gigantic world. And I know some people will just say release it for next gen only, drop the old gen version, but then CD Projekt Red is losing out on 150 million combined PS4 and Xbox One owners, something that is needed to fund and make a profit on the Cyberpunk development. Like, it has been in development for like 8 years or something. Of course, they really started working on it with a big team after The Witcher 3 came out, but still they spent millions upon millions on this game, and they want to release it on as many platforms as possible so they have the most possible buyers. But this story does show you that next gen can't come here soon enough, so that developers can get more of their original vision in the game. Another Polish game that looks awesome, Dying Light 2, was recently delayed as well and could be running into the same sort of issues. Digital Foundry also chimes in here. They already pared things pretty far back with Dying Light 1 in terms of environmental detail, lower than low settings for level of details. Dying Light 2 is dramatically more complex and detailed in comparison. I always wondered how they could pull it off. Dying Light 2 is also a game about choices, where a big decision can open up a completely new area that you maybe could not explore if you chose the other option. The game was supposed to hit in the spring of 2020, but is now delayed like indefinitely, like we don't know what the new window is, although we should hear more in the coming months. And of course, more games were delayed recently, like Avengers and Final Fantasy VII Remake, all at the end of the console generation. Might not be coincidence, maybe they're all running into issues and have a hard time in making their games run on these old consoles. But yeah, this problem doesn't seem to stop anytime soon, because even after the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are out, many third-party games will launch on the Xbox One and PS4 as well, for the same reasons as Cyberpunk 2077. You may have heard the news, but Microsoft even said that for like 1 to 2 years after the Series X launch, their Microsoft exclusives will be available on Xbox One too. So not solely made for the Series X. So you would think that that will hold games like Halo Infinite and the new Forza back too, right? While Sony seems to be banking on pure PlayStation 5 exclusives that only run on their next-gen system, and Godfall, the first announced PlayStation 5 game, is a good example of that. Let's hope that CD Projekt Red can make Cyberpunk run properly on these older platforms. But yeah, I think it's realistic to expect some sort of downgrade on these older platforms. Maybe in number of people on the screen or level of detail versus the demos that they shared online. There will very likely not be a next-gen version of the game at the launch of the PS5 and Series X. CD Projekt Red already confirmed that they have nothing planned at the time, but on paper, playing the game on these next-gen platforms should still boost the performance somewhat. And I totally have respect if you are able to wait till the next-gen consoles are out before playing this game. Like, I will totally be playing the game on day one. And I do think that some people that are now saying, I will wait for next gen, will totally be playing when September 17th comes around. With the release date delay, CD Projekt Red also delayed their whole marketing plan for Cyberpunk, so we have to wait a little longer before we get new footage and new info. But when we do, I will totally let you know here on the channel. So totally subscribe to stay up to date on more Cyberpunk and CD Projekt Red. Like the video to support the channel, and again, don't forget the giveaway in the pinned comments, and you can watch my previous video on the major impact that the delay of Cyberpunk has on the rest of the gaming industry by clicking on the screen. It's a pretty interesting one, if I say so myself, so check it out if you haven't already. For now, I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.